It is Sunday, the 20th of August, 2017. I'm in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal. I'm just starting up my alternative spiritual practice of protesting against Unitarian Universalist injustices, abuses, and hypocrisy, which include, but are by no means limited, to going to extreme and foolish lengths to cover up and deny clergy abuse of all kinds, but more particularly sexual abuse of children by Unitarian Universalist ministers. The Unitarian Universalist Association in Boston has, not just in my case, but in other cases, tried very hard to conceal the fact that some Unitarian Universalist ministers, to say nothing of some Unitarian Universalist Sunday school teachers, are guilty of various kinds of sexual abuse of children, sexual abuse of minors. So we're talking about, preteen children and teenagers. Basically people, under the age of majority, under the age of 18 in terms of Canada. And, the UUA, for instance, just to give the most perhaps glaring example of a brazen, bald-faced lie told on behalf of the Unitarian Universalist Association by a top-level official of the Unitarian Universalist Association in June of 2014, in the middle of his first moderator's report to a General Assembly of the Unitarian Universalist Association. So basically standing up at a podium and speaking to literally thousands of Unitarian Universalists in an auditorium and being videoed and streamed to other Unitarian Universalists, essentially addressing not just Unitarian Universalists, but essentially the American public, because this is, statements made on the public record for public consumption. UUA moderator Jim Key said the following words in a worthless apology to victims of clergy sexual misconduct that was inserted into the middle of his first moderator's report. I dare say quite inappropriately inserted into the middle of his first moderator's report to a Unitarian Universalist General Assembly. These are exact words. There were no incidents of abuse of children in my investigations. Actually, I left something out there. He actually said there were no incidents of abuse of children or elders in my investigations. That's the full quote. But, it does come back to him saying there were no incidents of abuse of children in my investigations. So he, in this apology, officially claimed, that he had personally investigated clergy sexual misconduct, and in his own personal investigations of clergy sexual misconduct, in his capacity as the moderator of the Unitarian Universalist Association, he had found no evidence whatsoever of sexual abuse of children. This is a brazen, bald-faced lie. I personally told Jim Key about some cases where Unitarian Universalist ministers and Unitarian Universalist Sunday school teachers were charged, tried, and convicted of such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape, if I can borrow a phrase from the arrogant and aggressive cease and desist demand letter that the Reverend Dr. Peter Morales-led Unitarian Universalist Association had me served with in June of 2012. So a couple of years before Jim Key brazenly lied about sexual abuse of children in his so-called apology to victims of clergy sexual misconduct. By the way, that was a UUA board apology. So it was an apology delivered by UUA moderator Jim Key that was essentially supposed to be an apology from the Board of Trustees of the Unitarian Universalist Association to victims of clergy sexual misconduct. So yeah, getting back to that demand letter, the Reverend Dr. Peter Morales led UUA. Jeannie Courter was the moderator at the time, hired a Canadian lawyer, Stikeman Elliott Barristers and Solicitors Litigation Lawyer, Maitre Marc-Andre Coulombe, to have me served with a cease and desist demand letter in June of 2012. It arrived in my email inbox on Friday, June 1st of 2012, and I was later served the actual paper document by a bailiff some days later in June. In this cease and desist demand letter, amongst other basically highly misleading and outright false and quite frankly ludicrous accusations, the following words were written: "Your unfounded and vicious allegations to the effect that ministers of the association engage in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape are unfounded," and it went on to, are defamatory. Excuse me, one more time. "Your unfounded and vicious allegations to the effect that ministers of the association engage in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape are defamatory," and it went on to say that they're so defamatory, according to Maitre Marc-André Coulombe, that they constitute the criminal act of blasphemous libel. So I didn't even know what blasphemous libel was. I mean, I knew what the term blasphemous meant, I knew what the term libel meant, but I'd never seen the two together in a phrase. And when I looked it up, I discovered that Canada actually has an anti-blasphemy law, or at least did until recently, certainly did in June of 2012, and that the Unitarian Universalist Association was accusing me of violating Canada's blasphemy law because I had blogged about some Unitarian Universalist pedophiles and rapists, and indeed a pedophile rapist Unitarian Universalist. So, you know, what I actually blogged about were two cases where Unitarian Universalists, one of them a minister, the other one a layperson, to the best of my knowledge never a minister, were actually charged, tried, and convicted of such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. In one case it was rape of teenage Tibetan refugees. In the other case it was the rape of preteen children, 12 years old and under, possibly as young as 6 years old according to some estimates, by Richard Buell of First Parish, Norwell, in Massachusetts. The other rapist was Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell. So these two people were charged, tried, and convicted of pedophilia and or rape, and sentenced to jail terms and spent time in jail. There was nothing remotely unfounded about what I said, and it wasn't particularly vicious. I basically just stated the available facts. So these are just two ways in which the Unitarian Universalist Association, and by extension the larger Unitarian Universalist religious community, cover up and hide the worst forms of clergy abuse, specifically pedophilia and rape, or a combination of both. So we're going to wrap this up for a little bit because I have something else to attend to, but I just want to look at the chalk slogans that I put down this morning and look at some of the picket signs. So yes, so I should mention that the Unitarian Universalist Association leaders who were most directly responsible for falsely accusing me of violating Canada's blasphemy law in legal bullying that was intended to conceal pedophilia and rape committed by Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell and Richard Buell, to say nothing of other Unitarian Universalist ministers, to say nothing of other Unitarian Universalist Sunday school teachers such as Stephen Craig Bullite, for one. They were atheists, quite hard-nosed atheists. Well, I don't know about Kay Montgomery being hard-nosed, but definitely an atheist. But Reverend Dr. Peter Morales, the president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, was basically a somewhat anti-religious atheist. Basically, he could be quite insulting towards God-believing people in his statements. So both of these people were the people who were, most responsible for hiring Maitre Marc-André Coulombe to falsely accuse me of blasphemous libel and legal bullying that was obviously intended to conceal pedophilia and rape committed by not just Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell, not just Richard Buell, not just Stephen Craig Bullite, but a certain number of other Unitarian Universalist ministers, Unitarian Universalist Sunday school teachers, etc., who have actually been charged, tried, and convicted of such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape, because I did not blog about all of them by any means. And then, of course, there's the ones that we don't know about, the ones that the Unitarian Universalist Association has successfully kept hidden in one way or another. You can be sure that for every case of clergy sexual misconduct that I know about, in terms of the specifics, that there are many others that are occurred, but it's very difficult to find out what happened because the UUA and individual Unitarian Universalist congregations did their best to keep it secret. So that's the beginning of my protest, and I'm wrapping this little video clip up now, as I said, because I have to take care of something.